Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. This is kind of a Hollywood celebrities dropping like flies adjacent video. First, I just want to say this: Andre Braugher, Brooklyn Nine-Nine actor, he was also in that good show called The Last Resort, which only had one season, but it's a very truther show. And was 61, and he died of a brief illness. What is that brief illness? What caused it? So this really isn't this kind of video, but I wanted to start off there in case people are going to send me links of that for the next couple of days. But what I really want to talk about is something I've been covering now for, I covered it last month. And then a month later, Draymond Green basically hit a guy in the face.
They're going to just try to decide if.
So he, was struggling with this guy. I watched this game. This guy, Yusuf Nurkic, he flopped a couple of times. He drew fouls that weren't really fouls. He like a couple of flops, and I don't know if that had anything to do with this. Draymond Green is also a flopper, and he says that he was flopping in this play. This was an excuse. You can see it here. So he said the guy was grabbing his shirt, which isn't really just a regular basketball play. And he turns around and pops him, right? Look at this dude right here. This dude on the bench here these guys are, he might be a fan. Fan gets these seats, or this is the Golden State Warriors bench. But he hit the guy, and, he just had choked another guy, which I showed you recently. And then I came across this video. I ended up telling my wife about this. She didn't know so much about it, right? And then I showed her this other video that came up. Well, first, this guy, Yuka Nurkic, you can see it here. He says this.
I don't know. Personally, I feel like that brother needed help. I'm glad he not trying to choke me, but at the same time, it had nothing to do with basketball, man. Like, I'm just out there trying to play basketball, out there swinging. I think we saw that often, but hope he, whatever he got in his life, get better. What's going on with him? I don't know.
So when people start questioning your mental sanity, right, which is what it's gotten to, the whole sports media is abuzz with this thing. They're talking about a 10-game to 25-game suspension. It should really be 25 games because what Ja Morant did, Ja Morant did some things off court. He brandished a gun. He did some other things. Got into a fight with a teenager and showed up at his sister's game with a bunch of thugs, right? He made some questionable decisions. Draymond Green has done all this stuff on court. He now has $3 million worth of money he's lost, which is really more money than that because of taxes that he has had to pay in fines. And he's been suspended and he's been kicked out of more basketball games than any other player except for Rasheed Wallace, who got kicked out for talking back to officials. Rasheed Wallace never got kicked out for fighting. If he did, it was nothing like Draymond Green, right? So he has been having this psychological meltdown. But this is some of his highlights. So this is everybody hates Draymond Green. So this is when he stomped on. He seems to be picking on foreign players recently. So last year in the playoffs, he stomped on this I don't want to call him Russian. His dad was a famous basketball player that played for Russia, Serbia, I think, something like this. He's Lithuanian. I just looked it up. And he's Dantis Sabonis, and his dad was Vytas Sabonis. His dad played when Lithuania was part of Russia or whatever it was, or whatever, I don't know. Whatever it might have been, right? But he recently he choked Rudy Gobert, who was from France. So the last three guys he's assaulted, and these are felonies, right? These are assaults. Like that's what he's doing. The last three guys he's assaulted have all been like European players or or something, foreign players. But he stepped on this dude and then jumped off the guy. And this is him getting into it with a fan. And then this is the time he kicked this dude who's this guy is not Australian, but from New Zealand. Like he's Samoan or something. He kicked this dude right in the nuts. Um, and then here, LeBron James stepped over him, and he hit LeBron James in the nuts, and he got suspended for a game there. He kicked this dude in the face, James Harden, a couple times at James Harden. Bradley Beal, who was playing in the Phoenix Suns last night, used to play for the Washington Wizards. He wrestled this guy out of bounds and slammed him to the ground. He hit Iman Shumpert in the face there. He pushed James Harden again there in the throat. This is where he punched his former teammate now, Jordan Poole, at practice last year that caused the Warriors to sort of melt down. And that was just those things. So this is in the NBA Finals, and Jaylen Brown, who seems to be a really good citizen, somebody who didn't get the boop, so he gets credit for that. This is in the NBA Finals. And I was rooting for the Warriors. I'm a Warriors fan, right? And there's good things about Draymond Green. He hustles. He's kind of an underdog. He's an undersized guy who plays really hard defense. There's things that he does that are admirable. But he's just such a thug and such a bully and just a piece of boop. But in this thing, he and Jaylen Brown go down to the ground, right? And then he drapes his feet over Jaylen Brown on purpose. Like this is a total dick move, right? And so Jaylen Brown pushes his feet off, and then he shoves Jaylen Brown like, how dare you push your feet? Like, I was using it as a footrest, and you push my feet off, how dare you? And then he gets up, and he pulls his pants down. He starts grabbing his pants and tries to pull his pants down. And he got a technical foul but wasn't removed from the game, right? And he did a lot of bullying behaviors that caused him to actually have he actually mentally struggled because of the harassment of the Boston Celtic fans. And Steph Curry bailed them out. They ended up beating the Celtics, but it's annoying, and he's just a bad person, right? Just a thug. This is like professional wrestling where there's a bad guy, a villain, and it just it wears on you and the fan base, and people are just sick of it. So I'm going to come back to that, right? I want to go and talk about this in a voiceover. But this body cam video, which YouTube recommended to me this morning, and I hesitated to click on it, but body cam woman arrested for playing with herself on Georgia Beach. It ends up being in Georgia. And it's from 3 weeks ago, and it's got 6,000,001 views. And it's intertwined with the Draymond Green story. So let's move over to the voiceover. So let's start with the Draymond Green video first. And I talk about how sports is entertainment, and some of it's staged and some of it is scripted. And there's, it's hard to tell what's what. They play a real game, but also they rig the system, or they control the narrative to make it more entertaining. And of course, betting's involved, all that stuff. That's not what this video is about. This is just looking at this show that we're watching and, repetitive behaviors. And some of this stuff seems inorganic. I don't think Draymond Green is being instructed to do this. It seems like he has got psychological issues and he's been melting down, because it isn't just these things that I'm showing you. Because I've watched a lot of Warriors basketball games. Warriors are my favorite sports team to watch. I love the way they play basketball. It's the kind of way that I enjoyed playing basketball. And it, back when they had Kevin Garnett, it was Kevin Durant. It was, like an art form. The shooting, the passing, the moving without the ball, the flow to it, right? But, they've slowly aged and have fallen apart. And their organization has spent more money than any organization. They have the highest payroll in sports history. They have a $400 million payroll. They're paying their players over $400 million, which is not only problematic for the franchise, but the league has come in and they are changing the way they structure, the way teams can, they're limiting teams' ability to do this in the future. they have this thing called luxury tax, which they tax teams for going beyond the limited amount of money they're able to spend, right? And they've been the luxury tax, and you get penalized more and more each year. And the team's ownership's been willing to do that. The owner has sold off part of his stock in the team so that he can pay the players and keep this championship run going, right? They've won 4 championships, and they've been in 6 finals, and they've been a dominant dynasty for the past, 8 to 10 years or whatever it is. And a very entertaining, very loved in San Francisco area. They're, global. Steph Curry's a global celebrity, somebody with a good character, a good, sort of nice guy narrative, whatever it is, right? But the team sucks right now. Their starting 5 is a disaster. They've had the best starting 5 in terms of the analytics in the past so many years. Last year, their bench sucked, and they couldn't win road games, and that's why they were a mediocre team. But this year, their bench is great. They got a lot of young players who've, they have a good way of developing their talent and things. And their bench has been great, but Klay Thompson, who's looking for a new contract, is horrible. He's like a shell of himself. He seems to be sulking, and I covered this in other videos. Andrew Wiggins, who took significant time off last year because his dad had a heart issue. Andrew Wiggins was a guy who didn't want to get the boop, but he did, and his team won a championship. He was an underachiever who seems to be a nice guy, but was pressured into doing something he didn't want to do and ended up having the best year of his career. And then since then he has, maybe been disinterested. And Jordan Poole was a guy that seemed to have a lot of talent, but was a real punk, and he was disrespectful to the elders on the team. And Draymond Green punched him in practice, and that was leaked. And so they're kind of under the gun, right? They have to make adjustments financially. They have Klay Thompson, who wants a bigger contract than he's worth, and Draymond Green just screwed all of them, right? Because he's going to be suspended for significant games. It's going to be detrimental to the team that just can't get on track. It's watching them struggle is watching like just a business die. I mean, as much as I like the organization, I always am more interested in, watching things fail. Like it's a thing that I do, right? And Draymond Green is, he just got a contract extension himself. He's making, I think, $25 million a year for the next 3 years. And he's just, destroyed the whole team. He's hurt his teammates. He's hurt the ownership and the city and the, NBA and all these things, right? And what he said there was that he was trying to draw a foul. He was flailing his arms to exaggerate the guy grabbing his shirt, and he just accidentally hit him. It was bad luck. And he apologized to the guy for, something he didn't intend to do. And he's done all these things in the past, and he never admits to doing them, which is problematic, right? And it goes far beyond these incidents. You see the guy just wrecking games, trying to bully players and muck up the game. You see them do this. Sometimes it helps the team, sometimes it doesn't, but it just wrecks the game. It's bad for everybody. And despite his good qualities, he's just, he's a cancer on the league. He should be suspended indefinitely until he gets a hold of first he should take responsibility for what he's done. Instead of lying about it and, playing the victim, he often cries that he gets treated worse than any other player and he's being targeted and unfairly, and that's the part that has to go. Like, just be honest about who you are and what you're doing, right? These are felonies. A lot of these things he could get jail time or prison time for doing in the street, right? You can't go up and choke somebody out, like something that you're not even involved in a fight, and some of these other things he's done. Unprovoked things, picking on smaller players, punching his teammate. I mean, he could have, that could have been an assault charge, right? I mean, all these things. Like, he could have gone to jail for any of these things. These are crimes. These are criminal behaviors. And the guy is, just really selfish, like his ultimate selfish and, stubborn and unwilling to own up to, the kind of person he is, right? And he's talked about how he has a podcast. So he talks about how he is much nicer to the other players in the league and he used to be a bully. And I'm like, what film are you watching? And so to go along with that, so I'm looking at these videos this morning, And my wife and I had to go to the chiropractor early. And our dogs ran off. They must have chased a rabbit out of our yard. We have coyotes now. Our neighbor said that she's been chasing off a coyote in her yard. They set snares, and there's been coyote sightings. They start coming in the winter when it's mating season, and then you don't see them for just usually the winter is the only time we see them, right? But we had a deer that died in our pasture, and I saw, there's some fur my dog found in our pasture where a coyote had eaten a rabbit. And so there's, a coyote presence. And our dog just ran off, so it's one of these things. And I was just looking at this video. I watched the very beginning of it about this girl who was caught masturbating on a beach. And it was kind of the opposite type of situation. And so I got in the car and told my wife about it. It's kind of funny because the cop was like, hey, what were you doing on the beach? Were you doing something on the beach? And one was like, what? Like what? She's kind of a bimbo. And, we listened to this and, we talked about it for a bit. And then I started talking about the Draymond Green thing because she didn't know about it so much. And I showed her a couple of clips of this when we got to where we were going. I played some of the stuff when, the audio of it. And she, so the cops approach her and say, you were doing something on the beach. She's like, is this a joke? And then she's like, well, and then they said, we saw you, someone saw you masturbating on the beach, and we got several calls. And she goes, is one of my friends calling you, like this kind of thing. She's sitting at a bar, but she was on the beach, and she was in the water. And she goes, who saw that? So she kind of admits to it, which was problematic. And then she starts to tell her story. The cops go, can we check in your bag? They want to look to see if you have a vibrator. Apparently it's called the bullet one because the cop pulls it out, the male cop, right? There's a female cop and a male cop. And the male cop's the one doing the talking, which was kind of hilarious. And she says, she was going to let him look in her bag. And the answer is always no. But what her story was this, and it was similar to Draymond Green's, but, kind of the reverse thing of being a victim. And she complained about who saw her and why would anybody be looking at her and how would people know what she was doing. And the guy said, well, it was a family, which means kids saw it. So, so she says that she laid on the beach, she sits down, and she sort of semi-demonstrates what she did with her vibrator, right? And then she said she had a really tough day and she had an orgasm, and, and she felt like it was offensive that somebody had watched her or saw her and reported it to the police. So she felt like a victim, and she said, well, am I going to get a ticket? And they kind of laughed because, this is indecent exposure and possible. I mean, if kids are involved, this could be a felony, right? And she just, walked right into it because she didn't realize, because she felt like she was justified in doing this thing on the beach, right? She was carrying her vibrator around with her in her backpack for, no apparent reason. And the video has 6.1 million views. So chances are everyone in her life is going to see this, people in her town, her boss possibly, God knows who else is, involved in her life, parents even, right? And it's only 3 weeks old. So it's going around. I'm sure lots of you guys are going to go find it and watch it because, it's one of those things. But it's a viral video, and I don't watch these type of videos. I don't watch police body cam stuff because as much as I find it funny and enjoy it, it's kind of depressing, right? It's like that show Cops. It's kind of a good show, but you don't feel good after watching it. But, YouTube recommended this to me because it's going viral. Like, this is a viral video, and it's going to be around for a bit. But because of her entitlement and her victim consciousness and thinking she was justified in doing what she did, and she was the victim here, that she has the God-given right to go and pleasure herself on the beach, in a public beach, right? She didn't realize the situation she was in because she should have said, I would like to talk to an attorney, and not said anything more. The cops, you want to look in my bag? No. They don't have a search warrant, and, they're not your friends, right? They're not there. You're not your therapist. They're not on your side. They want to listen to your side of the story. You either committed a crime or you didn't. And, this crime could be, God knows what it could be in terms of the publicity it's gotten and the fact that families are involved and kids are involved. she might do serious jail time, and at the very least, she's publicly embarrassed and humiliated. They're videoing this thing, and they released it. They released it. I don't know when it was taken. But once you're involved with the police, you should realize they're not your friend, and they're not all about justice or what's fair or whatever it is. And if they ask to search your belongings, the answer is always no. Because, why would you allow somebody to search your stuff? I mean, you don't want them to do it, and they don't have the right to do it. If somebody else came up to you and said, "Can I search your bag?" you'd say no, right? Like some random stranger, and that's what this person is a stranger. They might be a good cop, they might be a bad cop, but they're not your friend, and they're accusing you of something. And the more you talk, the more you incriminate yourself, right? But the same thing goes for Draymond Green, who has victim consciousness of his own and thinks that he's entitled to abuse these other players and, bully them and hit them and kick them. And, there's this, he's had a predisposition to hitting or kicking in the nuts. And, these are just some of the highlights. There's other things he's done, and he badgers the officials, and, he's constantly whining to the officials even though he's fouling people. And he gets away with things. When he gets a technical foul, most players realize they got to shut up, right? Sometimes they're too angry and they end up getting kicked out of the game. They get a second technical, get kicked out of the game. But he even dares the refs to give him a second technical, right? And the NBA has basically said, we had enough of you doing this stuff. And he went and did it again, and he's lying about it. And it's very similar, right? Having this self-sabotaging mentality when everyone else in the world's saying, yeah, you got to stop this, right? You're like, this is inappropriate behavior. Take responsibility for it, because this woman, once she dropped her vibrator in the bag, she's walking around carrying a vibrator in her bag. And if you're doing that, probably not good things are going to happen. Something embarrassing is going to happen. It's like putting drug paraphernalia or a weapon in your bag, going to a place where it's not appropriate to have it, right? And something bad ends up happening because you have something, there that you shouldn't have, right? Everything has a time and place, and you never know how things are going to go south, right? But anyways, I probably have more to say about this, but I've already made another video, a long video on my other channel, and I worked on my journey series today. So I'll probably mention this again tomorrow when I have, more time and more rest. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely pointing for the apocalypse and the ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.